This is indeed a disturbing universe.
Hello, greetings, and welcome. Welcome to the Stereo 999 YouTube channel. I am your host, the artist formerly known as Stereo Steve. And this week, an idea that's kind of been kicking in my head on and off for the past few months. And this morning I'm like, may as well just do it for this week. And it is pop prog. Pop prog is a thing. And by prog, we mean progressive rock. And a lot of people think of progressive rock as complex and indecipherable. But there's been many a prog rock band that has had a hit song on the radio. There's also been bands that are kind of in the middle, where they have the pop sensibilities but then add complex flourishes to their music, mostly from the 70s, because that's kind of the golden age of this kind of stuff. But an example, I'll start out with some examples of bands that established themselves as prog rock and then started having hits. This is Duke by Genesis, and it's essentially a prog album. But then there's this song Misunderstanding, which was the big hit song off of this. Another example is Yes, 90215, with Owner of a Lonely Heart. And, it had that punchy Trevor Horn 80s kind of sound, and Trevor Rabin on the guitar. And it was kind of, they adapted their music for the 80s. And they did a pretty good job. So this would count as a pop prog album. Can't mention Yes without mentioning this album. This is, if you have nothing at all by Yes, this is the place to start. This is the album Fragile from 1971. Has their big hit song Roundabout, which has been enjoying a resurgence of popularity due to some memes on the internets and a cartoon that uses the song, which I'm not going to pretend that I've watched any entire episodes of. But Fragile by Yes is a wonderful album. I don't know, should I include Rush in the conversation? They've always been revered as prog. And then there's that 80s synthesizer era. But the transitional album into pop prog, I would say, for Rush, Signals, because all the songs are concise, 5-minute songs. And Subdivisions was a big hit, got a lot of MTV rotations. Another favorite of mine, The Roaring Silence by Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Of course, with their big hit, Blinded by the Light, written by Bruce Springsteen. But they took it in some progressive rock directions, and when you listen to this whole album, they prog out in a few spots, like the song Waiter, There's a Yawn in My Ear instrumental, and Starbird, that kind of references Igor Stravinsky's Firebird. So it's got all, it checks a lot of prog rock boxes on the bingo card, but people remember this as, the top 40 hit song, Blinded by the Light. While I'm talking about Manfred Mann's Earth Band, their follow-up album I also really like. It's called Watch, and again, it's got that prog pop prog kind of feel to it. There's really catchy songs like Going Round in Circles, and there's California, which is kind of a ballad. But then there's Martha's Madman, which I don't think they actually wrote, and Drowning on Dry Land. But this is a nice record if you like the other one. Let's see, 10cc. Now this is the album, it's called The Original Soundtrack. This is the album that has their song I'm Not in Love, and there's videos here on YouTube that talk about the making of that song and how they ran all the layers of voices on tape loops to create that choir effect. But I don't know if they would even consider themselves a prog band. They probably just see themselves as kind of quirky pop. But the opening track on this album is called One Night in Paris, and it's a 10-minute long mini rock opera, and you can kind of see a lot of people see it as a precursor to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, just the way it's a mini opera with a lot of different sections. But then there's some, it's got I'm Not in Love, big hit. It's got Life is a Minestrone. Brand New Day is a wonderful song. And yeah, humorous, oddball, dabbling in complexity. So I think that album counts as a pop prog album. Of course, one of my childhood favorites, Electric Light Orchestra. This is their album Face the Music, and I guess this could be their transition from prog into pop, because Fire on High with the secret backwards messages is just a banger of an intro. But then there's Evil Woman and Strange Magic and One Summer Dream. Just some perfect pop tunes on this record. And while I'm talking about ELO, I remember back when I used to DJ at the old Knock Knock bar, having a discussion with somebody who was hating on ELO. And I'm like, what's the hate about ELO? And that person said, well, they went soft after Roy Wood quit. Roy Wood was the John Lennon and Jeff Lynne was the Paul McCartney. Well, maybe. But this is the first Electric Light Orchestra album with Roy Wood still in the band. And in America, this album was titled No Answer, where in the UK it was just self-titled first album. And according to legend, somebody from United Artists called long distance call to Harvest Records to ask what the title of the album was, and they didn't answer the phone, and he wrote No Answer on his notes, and so this album became No Answer. But 10538 Overture, great song. Let's see. Well, really the prototype for Electric Light Orchestra would happen to be the Moody Blues. And I am going to show this album instead of showing Days of Future Past. This is one of those with the trippy intro that leads into the rockin' song. That kind of became their format in a way. But this has the trippy intro procession leading into the story in your eyes, and that is pop prog perfection in my eyes. And this is a nice album with nice songs. Yeah, if let's just say, for those who consider the really complex prog rock to be a bad acid trip, the Moody Blues is a 10 milligram gummy. Okay, let's see. Roxy Music Siren. I'm going to say, because this album has their hit song, Love is the Drug. And all the songs are kind of tight 5-minute songs. Their first couple albums, were pretty proggy. They stretched out a bit on their first two albums, and then after Brian Eno left the band, they kind of tightened up their sound. And this is the one to get next after Avalon, because everybody says get Avalon first. Pink Floyd. Are there any Pink Floyd that could be considered pop prog? And I am going to say no, because even the albums that have their big hit songs on them, such as The Wall and Dark Side of the Moon, they're too conceptual to really be considered a collection of pop songs. You know, their albums are unified concepts. And, you know, if fragments of those unified concepts became hit songs, doesn't change the fact that the albums are conceptual. So no, not Pink Floyd. That being said, the main engineer on Dark Side of the Moon, Mr. Alan Parsons, did a little thing called the Alan Parsons Project. And this album, I, Robot, I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You, was like the big hit song off of this. But to my ears, this is where I hear the Pink Floyd influence used in a good way on an Alan Parsons Project record. To me, this one, there's even some like 10cc choir vocals coming up in it, and trippy interludes, and the songs all linked together. So yeah, this is a quintessential pop prog album, I, Robot, by the Alan Parsons Project. So American bands. Here's one not too many people talk about: Crack the Sky. And this album, Safety in Numbers. The first song on here, Nuclear Apathy, is just epic. The way it builds up and has different sections, 6 minutes long. That song just blew my mind the first time I heard it on their MySpace page 15 years ago. But yeah, a lot of the rest of the songs on this are pretty concise, and it's on Life Song Records. I think some of these same guys played on Spider-Man Rock Reflections of a Superhero, which I do not have, but I just thought I'd mention because I know there's some fans of comic books that watch my channel. But anyway, Crack the Sky. And of course, the most well-known American band in the pop prog. This is Kansas Left Overture. This is the one. It's got Carry On, Wayward Son, and this record just rocks all the way through. It's just a good time listening to this. And the songs get more complex as we get, through the second side. So yeah, this is another quintessential pop prog. And of course, while we're talking about bands named after places, and maybe the Fall Guys for pop prog detractors, because to many they went a little too far down the pop rabbit hole, that people were baffled by this record because of the resumes of everyone involved. Asia. It was the heat of the moment. But yeah, Jeff Downes from the Buggles, Steve Howe from Yes, Carl Palmer of Emerson, Lake and, John Wetton from King Crimson and UK. And it's pretty much concise, radio-friendly songs. Beautiful Roger Dean artwork. And you can't deny Heat of the Moment isn't catchy. I mean, it wouldn't be in a South Park episode otherwise. But yeah, So that's where I'm going to end my little pop prog show and tell. Hey Steve, how's it going? Oh, it's not going too bad, Mr. Gopher. Yeah, anyway, thanks for putting my eyeballs back where they belong. I can see clearly now. My brain is gone. All right, here we are, back again with these fools. All right, so the trifecta of Bargain Bin Records. Trifecta of, hoy, what are you talking about? Okay, so for months and months in a certain bargain bin, there have been 3 records that have been just kind of staring at me, just mocking me, just kind of saying, you know what we are, and you're the one who's going to end up buying us. And now I got all 3, so I'm just going to give it a quick rundown. Okay. Actually, you know what? I think I'll let Mr. Gopher talk about these. Okay, well, this first record, this is The Innocents, and in a previous video, Steve was saying that he saw their TV special back in the 80s, and so he wanted to reminisce, and he grabbed this record, and he remembered a couple of the songs, and it wasn't that bad. And this other record, The Tasmanian Devils, I think in the last video, Steve was saying that he saw this band play, like maybe at a high school dance or something back in the 80s. And he didn't really remember what they sounded like, but he remembered that this was the band he saw. And so he ended up just grabbing this record for that reason. And there's a third record. There's a third record in this trifecta of Bargain Bin Records. And Steve just got that one today, so I'm going to give it back to Steve to let him talk about it. Okay, the third record in the trifecta of Bargain Bin Records that have been just staring at me. This is the lovely Ms. Lori Lieberman. And she did the original version of Killing Me Softly with his song before Roberta Flack. I mean, the legend goes that Roberta Flack was on an airplane listening to the airplane entertainment on the earphones and heard this song and decided she would cover it. But this is the original version by Lori Lieberman, and supposedly she wrote the song about Don McLean, an American Pie guy. But anyway, it's a little more acoustic and laid back. I mean, in my opinion, Roberta Flack's version is the definitive version. But this is a nice version, and it's the original version. All right. All right, Steve. Well, that'll eat up another 3 minutes of your video. Thank you.
What's the matter? Can't you hear anything? Turn your volume up a little bit. 1 million cycles coming your way.
Okay, well, here's something I just kind of thought of that I'm wondering if anybody else out there watching knows of any more of these. Because I found 2 of these. These are album covers, albums that have artists depicted on the cover that do not actually appear on the record. And I got 2 of them. This is Robert Fripp's Exposure, which is a solo album he did about a year before he put King Crimson back together, which has a stellar assortment of guests including Peter Hamill, Daryl Hall, Peter Gabriel. But anyway, this guy here in the background is David Bowie. David Bowie does not appear on the album, but he's on the cover. The other one is Miami by the Gun Club, LA, kind of blues and country influenced punk band. If you know the Gun Club, you know the Gun Club. But this is their second album, pretty brilliant. But that's Debbie Harry there, and she's on the cover, but she does not appear anywhere on the record as far as I know. So I'm just curious if anybody knows any other albums that have musicians on the cover that do not appear on the record. Let me know in the comments.
So again, thank you. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, extra thank you. If you're new here, you can like and subscribe and all that if you want. You can go watch some of my other videos because you missed them, if you just got here. My repeat viewers and recurring commenters, there is no device that can gauge how much I appreciate y'all. So thanks for being there, and I'll see you next week. Keep rocking, and peace.
Don't hear anything, huh? What's the matter with your set? Something's wrong with your set if you can't hear 1 million cycles.